No? There we go. Okay, first of all, we need to thank you so much for praying for us, for financial support. We really felt your prayers during the week. There were some times when we weren't sure if we were going to make it through the airport, but actually, I wasn't going to say this, but we had thought our flight was going to go into Chicago, and we only had an hour, and we were told by several people that have flown into there that there's no way you'll make it to your next flight out to Phoenix. So we were like, we'll pray about it. And I'm not sure when we found out, the day before or whatever, that it's not even the O'Hare, Chicago O'Hare. It was just a small airport. So we didn't have a problem at all. It was just a hop and a skip to the next gate. So that was one of the ways that prayer helped. I forgot my notes. So, yes, financially, by praying. Okay, so Aim Right is where we went. I don't know if you haven't heard about Aim Right or what they do. It's an organization it's a very good organization. They're pretty much in downtown Phoenix. They're still in the residential area, but they bring in the city kids, inner city kids, and just do after-school activities during school year. Bring them in, basically play games, keep them entertained so they don't go out and get in trouble. When the school is over or out, they do Bible school, several weeks of Bible school, and we were there to do one of them. I think Brittany was there for a year and 3 months, and that's kind of where I became known of Aim Right. But Brittany was there for a year and 3 months, and she brought home a souvenir. His name was Wally, so Wally was there also, and Carson was there for per month. So it's a good organization. Jeff wanted me to tell you they really appreciate you as a church for the support. He said it several times. He really appreciates. I think I will give it to Shelley.
All right. I second what Tim said. Thank you so much for the prayers. We really felt them all week long. We had a really good week. And what we're going to do this morning, we're going to do a little different. We're going to stand up by our pods. So I was a leader, Tim was a leader, Lakin was a leader, Carson is a leader, and Matt's a leader, and they will continue after we're done. But so this was my pod. We had a lot of fun. They're going to talk a little bit, but I'm going to just talk about how the schedule of the day looked. It was long days. So this is kind of how it looked. So we got up and we were in the dining area by 7:30 in the morning, and everybody broke off and did their separate devotions. So they could go and do their devotions and meet back up in the dining area by 8 o'clock for breakfast. And then we ate breakfast, and by the time that was done, Jeff Chupp, who is the director at Aim Right, would come in, and he would tell us what our work projects were going to be that day. And then we would split the groups up, and then they'll talk about that later. We would have our work projects done by noon because it was so hot that they had us come back in, and we would eat lunch there at the church by noon. And then 1 o'clock, we had our pod time. So that's when we would get into these groups right here, like you see, and we would kind of just talk about the day before, about devotions, what they took out of it, and all that good stuff. And then they had free time for a couple hours from 1 to 4. It was about, or 1:30 to 4, it was about free time. And we would take them at different places. I don't know if anyone's talking about that, but anyways, we took them to Scottsdale, to souvenir shop, and we just took them swimming. They had a water fight one day. So we kept them busy. And then 4 o'clock came, and we met again in the dining area, and we got ready for Bible school. And so every evening we would do VBS with the local kids, and they will talk about that because that was a highlight. And then we would eat dinner not until 8:30 at night. So after all the kids go home from Bible school, then we would go and we would eat dinner, and then they had free time until 11. So it was quite a long day, but I'll let the kids talk more about what they did.
Okay, so I'm just talking about my favorite part of the trip, and that would be the VBS that we did every evening. It was really cool to get to know the kids, and it's also very different. They don't act like kids around here do. And it was just interesting to see how they live their life, and it was fun to be an impact on them, and I really enjoyed just getting to know them. And I also loved going to the Grand Canyon and South Mountain our last day. And so that was just my highlight for the trip.
I'm talking about one of the work projects we did. On Wednesday, we went to Edison School, and we helped move computers and stuff like that from one classroom into another one. I'm not sure what the other group did, but that's what we did.
So I'm talking about Bible school as like a whole. So basically, it was from 6 to 8, Monday through Thursday, and basically at like 5:30, the vans would go out, and they would pick up the kids, and then they'd bring them back, and we'd just like all dance and like have fun and like get to know them. And then at around like 6, it was kind of like our Bible study, Bible school. They had like songs and dances, and then they split up into 4 different stations. There was a snack station, crafts, Bible story, and a game station. And then after that was all done, then we went back into like the sanctuary area, and we sang more songs and danced, and then the vans like took them home and they left. But I think my favorite part was the Bible school. It was really fun to like get to know the kids, and also just to get to know like everybody here closer was one of my highlights.
So I'm going to be talking about some of the volunteering. On Tuesday, me and a few people here went to a food bank, and basically what we would do is we would help people shop. So we'd walk around with a cart, point to items, and they'd take it off the shelf if they wanted it. And it was just really nice to see some of the people. They were so nice, and just give back to some of them.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking about something that we did on the first day before we could have the Bible school. We went to some of the apartment complexes, and we handed out invitations to people, and we just basically knocked on their door and asked if they had kids, and then we gave them these flyers that we had. And we had 14 new people coming, and they were really happy with that at Aim Right, so that was nice that we were able to help them. And my favorite part about the trip was probably the Bible school and getting to build a relationship with these kids.
Okay, I'm going to talk about one of the work projects. So Thursday morning after breakfast, a group of us walked over to Garfield Elementary, and then we were helping them move some computers from the library into a different classroom. And then we were helping them paint some desks for the computers. And then one of my favorite things of the week was all the free time that we had, and then when we got to spend time with each other and stuff like that.
Okay, so basically what I did was I went with Brady and Faith and Sammy and Cole, and we went to the food bank, and like what Brady said, we helped people go around and shop and do groceries and all that kind of stuff. And the girls did, like, they organized clothes, I'm pretty sure, and Cole helped, like, move people's stuff out to their cars and help them load, basically.
I'm going to be talking about the Grand Canyon. So on Friday, we woke up early, and we all piled into a van, and we traveled for 3 hours to the Grand Canyon. On the way, I think we stopped at an In-N-Out, and Cole got a In-N-Out t-shirt, which was pretty dope. And then once we got there, I did not realize how big the Grand Canyon was, but it's a mile deep, and it goes out as far as the eye can see. When we were there, we traveled into the Grand Canyon, and yeah, we went to some souvenir shops, and it was pretty funny. We had 30-some kids go into these small little shops.
I'm going to be talking about what we did after the Grand Canyon. So we went to South Mountain, and it was a really long drive. And so our drivers were Carson and Matt, and the gate closed at 7 o'clock to get there, and we were like a couple minutes close to not making it because the car in front of us. And then, so we drove up, and we just stayed and took pictures of like the sunset, and we stayed until it was dark to see all the lights turn on. And then after that, we went back to Aim Right, and felt bad for Matt and Carson because they had to deal with us listening to High School Musical and all of our VBS music. So, and then my favorite thing was definitely the free time that we had, getting to know these people better, and the VBS that we had, getting to know all the kids.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about devotion time. So we had about 20 minutes for 5 days a week. We did our devotions, and the main theme was like establishing yourself in Christ. So it was really neat to do the devotions, and then after lunch, we would talk in our pod time, which I had all girls, so it was really good. And then for VBS, I did story time, and we taught the kids the story of Joseph. So it was really neat to act out, the things that happened. So the inner city kids, you can't really sit there and teach for 15 minutes because they have a really short attention span. And so we would act that out, and it was really neat. My favorite part was seeing them get really involved in the story, and they would be so excited to bring their friends back the next day. So it was really cool to see Christ through them.
I will be talking about the food and the cooks for the week. So that we had Naomi and Mabel as our cooks. They're right over there, and they were in charge. So the first night that we got there, they had to go and get groceries to feed all of us, and a lot of the interns would eat meals with us too. So they had a lot of groceries to bring in, and they had a lot of groceries come throughout the week as well. And then every day they would make us breakfast, lunch, snack, and dinner, and they were in charge of doing all the dishes every day as well, so they did a lot of dishes. But the food was very good, and we always had plenty of food. And my favorite part of the week was probably leading a group at Bible school. We had the youngest group, so it was really cool to get to know them and to play with them throughout the week.
Okay. So I was a part of the food bank group that went to the food bank and volunteered over there. And me and Sammy worked with the clothes, and we're like, as the people would shop and leave, we'd make sure they didn't over shop and made sure they had everything they needed. And it was really cool to just see how grateful they all were for the little things, and it just kind of makes you reflect on how much we take for granted. And I would say my favorite part of the week was watching the kids worship, because honestly you could just see the Holy Spirit through them, and you can tell they don't get to do things like this very much, and it was just really cool to see them live out through their outlets.
I'm going to be talking about the pickup and drop-off. So like they said, every night before VBS, we had to go pick up these kids. I think there was 3 groups, right, that went to 3 different apartment complexes. Me and Cole were in a van that went to the Saluna complex. And we got there, and we basically knocked on the doors, and we're like, hey, we're from the church. Did your kids want to come? And they'd be like, yeah, here, take my kid. So... But it was really cool that they allowed their kids to do that. And one of my favorite parts was actually picking up the kids. The first couple nights, we always had to wait maybe 10, 15 minutes for them to get ready. But then by the last night, they were all standing outside their door, excited to go. So it was really cool to see how excited they were.
All right, so this is my pod. Christiandre, Jamin, Sadie, and Kate. I'm going to share briefly about the staff at Aim Right. There is 3 main staff members. One is Jeff, the director, Ben and Alicia. Ben leads the VBS each week, and Alicia is in charge of the interns. There's probably 6 interns, I think. There's 3 or 4 that are long-term, and there's also 3 or 4 that were there just for the summer, which is what I did last year. So for VBS, I was a group leader. I went around with the same group of kids each evening, and yeah, that was also interesting. Jamin and Kaylee were also in my group. Favorite parts of the week for me was definitely VBS each evening. It was fun to get to know the kids that were in my group, even though they were very crazy and very disobedient, but it was a blast. And also spending time with each person here, and also seeing some friends that I met last year.
So I'm going to be talking about what my group did for VBS. So it was like me and Amber, I can't even remember who was all, but we were in charge of games. And if you didn't want to get wet, you were going to get wet. Like, you had no choice, because most of them included water and a sponge, and basically putting it on top of someone's head. So that was really fun, just to like see the kids and play with them. And then after the water game, we'd make them run around so that way they'd be at least a little bit dry when they go inside. And one of my favorite things that we did for the week was our group had a giant water fight, which got a little intense, but it was really fun.
So I'm going to be talking about Thrive. It's very similar to Pure Gift of God, as in stuff gets donated and then sold at a thrift store. And another part of that is they have housing for people that, like young people that are pregnant, or young males that are looking for a job, and they just kind of need housing. And part of that is just people that live there, they make requests for items and stuff, and we would go around and shop for them and like get them the items that they needed and deliver them to the apartment. And then my part in VBS was I was a group leader, and I think it was really nice to be a group leader just because you got to personally know some of the kids better than the people at the stations. And then my favorite part was the dancing and the singing, like before and after, which is kind of ironic because when we were practicing at Shelly's house, I was like the least enthusiastic person about that. I wasn't not very a fan of it. And then by the end of the week, I was probably the most energetic person on the floor.
I'm also going to be talking about Thrive and what we did there the one day. While everyone else was getting ready for a back-to-school sale, me and Carson were in a separate room putting together furniture with 2 older people, and we were putting together a wardrobe, and we whipped it up pretty quick, and yeah, it was pretty fun to just work with them. And it was kind of funny because the old guy told us to make sure we follow the directions, and then we put ours together, and I checked ours against theirs, and ours was by far better. And then at VBS, my part was I was a group leader, as Carson said. We went around with the kids, made sure they were behaved, and we were the leaders of the youngest group, and they were like 4, 5, 6 years old. So they were very not obedient and crazy, but it was a good time. My favorite part was probably the VBS and just the relationships we made with the kids. They were great kids, and I still miss them today.
Hi, so I'm going to be talking about Thrive as well. About 3/4 of us went to Thrive on Tuesday, and we split into different groups. Some started decorating apartments, some started putting furniture together. I was with the group that did the Back to School Bash organization. So there were about 3 or 4 pallets stacked high with just school supplies. So we unloaded the pallets and we separated all of the pencils from the pens, and we just kind of got all of that stuff together so that when the kids come to pick out their school supplies, it will be easy and fast for them. And then after we were done with that, we also did some personal shopping. So at Thrive, they have this huge warehouse just chucked full of items and supplies that you would need in your house every day. And me and some of the other girls got a shopping cart, and we had these lists with just items on it that we had to pick out. There was anything from towels and sheets to personal hygiene to lamps, fans, anything you could need. And we just kind of, if they had it, we put it in the cart, and then we put it in boxes so that they could ship it out to these families. And it was really cool just to see like how grateful people were while we were down there. And my role in Bible school was story time. And as Lakin said, their attention span was tiny, like minuscule. So like trying to act the story of Joseph out, it was difficult some days, but we got it done. And just like every day we would like recap from the night before, and just seeing these kids remember the story that we told them was actually amazing. Like they remember stuff so well. And every night in the recap, one of my favorite parts was this kid would always come in. I would be like, so like where we left off yesterday, and he would always be like, oh, Joseph got thrown in a pit. And it was kind of funny because every day he would say that. And then another one of my highlights was we were on the plane, and I think we just landed in Chicago for our layover, and the flight attendant was trying to get Tim's attention, and she was like, excuse me, sir, excuse me, and she was like trying to talk to him, and then finally she was just like, hey, mission dad. And then she finally got his attention, but I thought that was pretty funny.
So I'm going to be talking about Thrive. So I was one of the few people that went and decorated apartments. So they were like tiny rooms that had like a bed and a couch and a desk. And then we had to go and find things to make it like more decorated than it already was. So we went to the warehouse and we found decorations, and we went to like this shed thing and we found some things. And then after that, we organized a closet. So it was really fun to do that. And then for Bible school, I was one of the leaders for the snack station. So we put on a video, and then they ate their snack, and then we played games with them afterwards. One of my favorite parts was playing games with everyone, like in the free time.
Okay, so this is Matt's pod. Okay, so on Wednesday, after we went to the mission thrift, after some of us went to the mission thrift, we came back, we sat in the cafeteria, and they were like, okay, now we're gonna do the rocks. And I didn't know what that meant. So we went out, and there were just like 2 big piles of rocks in the garden area where the trees were. So we had to spread the rocks, and it took like, I don't know, like an hour and a half. And our hands were all blistered up, and we didn't even finish. We had to go back the next day. And so some of us went back the next day and finished it. But that was miserable. That was not fun. It was really hot too. And then my favorite part would probably have to be the ongoing joke between the boys and Andre. So we thought it was really funny to, at random times, just look straight at Andre and say, wake up, or just like, kind of like, wake up, Andre. So we thought that was hilarious, and it was kind of starting to trip him out. So me and Andrew gathered all the guys, and we told them we're going to wake up at 2:30. We took this joke way unreasonably far. It was dumb. So we woke up at 2:30, and we stood around his bed, and we just we said, wake up, wake up, wake up, for like 10 seconds, and as soon as he like moved, we all went back to bed and acted like nothing happened. The whole week. Nobody talked to him about it. I don't know if he thought it was real or a dream. I don't know. He was so confused. But that was probably my favorite part.
So for VBS, I was with Andrew, Jackson, Chrissy, and Claudia, and we did the water games outside. And one of my favorite games that we did was a sponge game. And every time us leaders would get the sponge, we kind of had this thing where we would kind of go for each other because, well, we kind of have beef with a couple of us. But that was one of my favorite ones. And then also when we had our water fight, that was a lot of fun.
So for Bible school each night, I was in charge of snacks with Kate, Kiera, and Lexi. And so each night when each group came in, we gave them their snacks, and then we had them watch a video to try to keep them entertained. And then afterwards we asked them questions, and then if we had time at the end, we played a game. And then for my highlight of the trip, I thought it was cool to see the kids come to Bible school. I realized how grateful I am for the family I grew up with and everything I was taught as a kid. It broke my heart to see where the kids came from, and I'm glad that they had the opportunity to come to Bible school each night. I'm glad I got the chance to go on this missions trip because it was a lot of fun, and God showed me a lot throughout the week.
For VBS, I was part of the games group, and we played a lot of water games, like Chrissy said. And the one day, it's kind of my low light of the week, it was we played Capture the Flag, but with water balloons. And then they ended up afterwards dumping the whole crate of water on me and got my shoes all wet. And those are the only shoes I had. So I had to buy myself some new shoes. And I got these Crocs right here. And these are, I call these my clogs. These are, yeah.
So my role in VBS was getting to lead around the kids to each station, and I really enjoyed that because I got to know a lot of the kids personally, and it was just a lot of fun getting to do each activity in the stations. And my highlight probably was just building the relationships with the kids and just getting to know them really well, and it really humbled me seeing where they came from and just made me really grateful for everything I have here.
So in order to make VBS happen, we would have to go out in vans, and we'd have to go to where the kids live and pick them up and bring them to the church so that we could have VBS, and then afterwards take them in the vans and actually take them back to their homes. My van was me, Andre, and an intern who would actually drive the van. His name was Luke. And we were vastly outnumbered by these kids, and it showed. We had like 8 kids in our van, and so we would go out to the projects, and we would go knocking on their doors, and we could actually see where they would come from, and they would be so excited. A lot of times we wouldn't even get to the doors, and they would start running across the street, not even looking for cars, to get to the van so that they could go to church. And we would then load them up, take them to the church, go through VBS, and then afterwards, to end VBS, they had this song that would actually play on the slideshow that would just really hype them up and for them to worship, and they would go crazy. And so they'd be going back to the vans all excited, and then it was war. Like, it would break out. It was punching, cursing, screaming, pulling hair. My hair. And we're in the middle of them. Andre did great. He was right in the back middle. And I don't know if you know anything about Arizona, but it's hot. And so these vans don't have AC, so you're just sweating, and these kids are going at it, and you're trying to break out the fights, and yeah, so it was good, but it was a lot of work. So it was easy to get really frustrated and want to get mad at the kids and just make them behave. But once you got to where they were actually from and where they live, you got under the surface a little bit, and you got to see the story. So we had one that really touched me we had 4 brothers, and they were all under the age of about 8. There was probably an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and then 2 4-year-old twins. And they all went to the same house, and they were by far the craziest, like just a challenge. And so we would get to the house, and we would drop them off, and like 3 out of the 5 nights, their mom wasn't home. And so these kids would get home after school at 3 in the afternoon, and they'd be home by themselves until 6 or 7 in the evening, maybe even 8, 9, whatever, until their mom gets home. It was a single mother, and she's raising these 4 boys. And we figured, it was pretty likely that they didn't even have the same dad. And so when we would actually drop them off, the guy who was there wasn't even their dad. And so these kids are coming from just broken homes, and like they're hurting, and they need to be loved and brought to a place. And so it made me really grateful for VBS, Aim Right, and what they do for the kids in that neighborhood, coming from broken neighborhoods, coming from the projects, and showing them the love of Christ. And it put, I think, for all of us, it put a lot into perspective about what we have and what God has given us, and just what these kids don't have, and being able to give to them and love them and make that a part of the trip. So I think it was really good for us. And hey, you know what? We know how to raise some kids now, I guess. I don't know. Good luck with that. I don't, actually.
Okay, I didn't really know what I was going to say this morning. I'm going to stand over here. Just so you guys know, you have an amazing group of kids. We had so much fun this week. We didn't have to teach or do anything, but we cooked for them, and I got to know a lot of these kids, and made me appreciate our church. I don't know if you like the food. The one night you said there was always plenty of food, and Neoma was going to talk about this. It's not widely known, but we were embarrassed. I don't really know what I was going to say this morning, so I'll let you talk about the other stuff.
Kaylee said we had plenty of food. One night, the last person in line didn't get anything to eat, but we made sure he had leftovers. But I had a good time. I feel like I made a lot of new friends. They're a great group of kids. And the first day, Mondays, they all left, and me and Mabel were by ourselves, and it was kind of nice. But then we used Blackstone to make our food a lot of the times. And then I was cleaning it, and all of a sudden a lady with a wagon came in there and sat down. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's a homeless lady. I've never talked to one before. And at first I didn't know what to do. Do I help her? Do I talk to her? And then I talked to Tim, and he told me what to do. But I later on, I asked her, she sat there for a couple hours. I asked her if I can pray for her. And she said yes, and I prayed for her, and after I was done, she had tears in her eyes. And I just had to think, I am so privileged where I come from. She doesn't have what I have. So, I'm sure we all have a story to tell. And I think we have to be careful how we judge people or look at people, because they might not have it as well as we do. And so that really made me appreciate the kids, or just my home life, or like how I grew up. And I had really fun with Mabel, and I would do it again.
So if no one's going to tell this story, then I might as well. This is the Great Air Mattress War of 2022. So one day I came back from the shower, came back in the room, and I see 2 guys, Andre and Cole, fiddling with my air mattress plug. And I go over and it's unplugged so the air would come out. So I plug it back in, go to sleep, wake up on the floor. So it turns out they unplugged it again. So I decided to make a move that night. While everyone was distracted playing games, I unplugged Cole, Andre, and I think I got Andrew, and I accidentally did Matt as well. It was a war zone. And it ends up people got mad, so a few more air mattresses got plugged. I didn't even wake up to a good morning. I just woke up to a, did you unplug my air mattress? And I basically gave up at that point. I knew the next night I was sleeping on the floor. So I didn't even bother sleeping in my mattress. I just slept on the floor, and yup, it was unplugged the next morning. But that's all that I just wanted to say about it. I think it was pretty funny.
They had a lot of fun, and I have to second, Tim was mission dad from that time on. He was called many different names. But yeah, we actually had 2 birthdays also. We had Sadie had a birthday and Haley had a birthday during the week. Sadie kind of got a nice little surprise. Again, our flights were so amazing, and it's because of prayer, because we had great flight attendants, and she made everybody turn off she turned off the lights, and she made everybody turn on the help light, which was blue, right? Everybody had a blue light, and it was dark, and then they sang happy birthday for her, and that was her candles. She was supposed to blow out her candles then. So they made it really special for Sadie, and it was just really good, and you guys have a good group of kids. We enjoyed them. And do you have anything else? We have a slideshow. Are you guys ready? Do you guys want to sit down? You guys can go back and sit down. And then we'll turn it over to the worship team after.